So now that we've actually got a chance to play Splatoon 3, I can say with certainty that I'm actually really excited. So for this video, I plan to go over some of my thoughts following the Splatfest premiere, and what I thought of the weapons, the specials, the stages, and so on. Now, I won't actually be deep diving into my thoughts on the brushes, as I'm planning a special discussion for that one, so stay tuned for that video later. And if you do end up liking what you see and hear in this video, please be sure to subscribe for more stuff just like this in the future. So now let's just get right into the meat of the video. Let's begin with the area everyone began the Splatfest at, the lobby. I think the idea to incorporate the lobby system into the test range was actually an incredibly smart move. Finally, we have something to do if our queues get pretty long, and which they did. Starting out, you'd be just named player, and then you were required to play your first match alone, but once it was over, you could name yourself, and then I was able to jump in and play with some friends. For the entirety of the time I played, I was joined by my friends and former teammates from Speedruns Live, Toeful, Shadow Chimera, and Forest. Being able to see them practice and mess around with stuff as we made games was really cool, even though the ghosts were very low frame rate and were actually just 2D sprites and not 3D models. Also, not every weapon being fully modeled, which made Shadow walking around the dynamo look really funny. Just being able to hang out with them and throw paint around together was nice and a very welcome change. Then we get into the maps, and I just want to say first off, I loved almost every single map. The only map that I had a gripe with was actually a returning one, Mahi Mahi Resort. For whatever reason, they took Resort, which was already a pretty big map in the original game, and crushed it down to be a vastly smaller map until the water level changed. This left the middle of the map feeling very cramped, something we thought was just us, but following a tweet I made, it's become very clear that we weren't the only ones that felt this way. The other returning map we had access to, Museum, felt just like it did the original. Pretty much unchanged aside from a few spots, Museum felt like it did in Splatoon 1, and despite my thoughts on Museum being clear about it having a rather bland gimmick, it's a fairly unoffensive map that still stands as a good solid stage to play on, and I'd stand by that. For the new maps, I enjoyed their designs a lot more than I thought. They really designed the maps to make use of the new specials, with terrain aiding itself to things like the Squid Surge with tall walls and Squid Roll with the open gaps, while also having plenty of possible flank routes for the Zipcaster to make use of. All this without the stages that make it feel like some weapons wouldn't work over others. These maps felt like they had points where just about any class could work off of, something that Splatoon 2 did admittedly end up struggling with in terms of map design. Some maps there were just not suited to certain weapons, and it hurt some classes and some players. Plenty of areas to hide around, places to flank, open areas to fight in. They all felt really well designed in the third game. Out of all of them, I think I enjoyed Undertow Spillway the most out of all of them, but Scorched Gorge was actually pretty good as well. Now when it came to the weapons, I pretty much only played the brushes over the 8 hours I played. Now I originally planned to play the full 12 hours if the North American one was running, then jump into the Japanese one to continue, but unfortunately something came up and I had to leave after only 8 hours. A good 7 hours of that was spent exclusively playing Octobrush and Inkbrush, with the remaining hour being the Splatana. I had mentioned earlier I wasn't going to go too much into brush stuff since I planned another video on it, but I will say it felt extremely good. Both kits actually felt really good and were as close as to perfect as kits as I could have asked for. The Splatana, however, felt a little weird at first, but once I realized how the charge slash actually worked, it felt a bit more fluid to use. Now I can't say for certain if it felt like it was going to be underpowered or overpowered, since we don't have everything to test it against. But as it was in the demo, it felt pretty average. It didn't quite excel against the things I played it against, and it didn't exactly do well against my weapons either. Though this isn't definitive, as it is just turf war, not exactly the pinnacle of competitive play, so the Splatana might fare better once we can actually do things more than just play turf war. Now a big concern I and many others had was actually going to be with the specials. Splatoon 1 and Splatoon 2 had their fair share of insane specials that people would consider to be unfun to play against. The people I played with during the demo mostly stopped playing Splatoon 2 over Ink Armor and Stingray spam. So the specials being mostly all new, we all had a lot of worries about them, especially the Tacticooler, which going into the demo seemed like it was going to be the most OP special in the game.
Who's thirsty?
Me.
Me.
So good. and turns out it's not. I'd go as far as to say the special didn't even really feel overpowered. Some felt good, some were better than others, but thankfully nothing actually felt OP in the same way that playing against peak armor was. Tacticooler, while offering speed boost, special saver, and near instant respawns, seemed to be the outlier and is most likely to be spammed. Nintendo actually did take into account what that may do. Tacticooler actually can't be stacked, and they only last so long. Even if the machines are placed down, they don't even last forever. This means even if teams stack them, they'd have to stagger them out and avoid using them at the same time as each other. Not to mention, even if it's placed down, the fact that it's not an instant global buff instantly makes it more fair than armor. Now I could see the Tacticooler still being changed upon release. I think the only change I would really see it getting, however, is actually making it breakable. Things like the Wave Breaker can be shot and destroyed, so I could definitely see Tacticooler getting a change where it too could be broken by enemy players. But other than that, I don't think it really needs to be changed too much, as again, I don't view it as OP. This would just be something I'd classify as really good. The Tacticooler requires the players to approach the cooler to get their drink, and once you have it, you have some arrows around your character. Those arrows aren't actually only visible to you, they're visible to everyone, meaning that if you took your drink, sharking actually isn't an option anymore. You're visible and will be seen. This positions Tacticooler in a spot where it seems the design was based around being the push enabler and not a stabilizer. Armor worked so well because it was useful no matter what the situation. But Tacticooler and the buffs make it very obvious that the point is you pop it before your team makes their move in. Otherwise, it won't last long enough for there to be a benefit anymore. This design, I feel, is what makes it not as OP as people feared, and instead makes it into a tier of just being good. Other specials have their drawbacks to keep them balanced as well. One I can name immediately is the Crab Tank. While it seemed like it's really good at painting and killing, if the enemy team shoots you, the actual player that sticks out of the tank, you still die. You aren't safe from damage. In fact, it actually makes it essentially where if you get headshot while in the tank, you still die. This makes using it against weapons that have burst or projectile spam like blasters, rollers, and brushes extremely dangerous. The only way to ensure your safety as the tank is to just roll around where you aren't exposed. But by doing that, you effectively do nothing in comparison to actually just shooting. I like this type of design as it's not something I expected them to do. Now, the Reach Slider is another one that seemed good, but after you launch and explode, your character is actually stationary for a period of time, leaving you open to a counterattack if you didn't actually kill your target. This means blindly using it onto the enemy team isn't exactly smart, which is actually really good. The other specials I plan to talk about more in a dedicated video, but overall I feel the specials were all designed well, and none stood out as the best, most powerful special. They all had their uses in areas where they do well and in areas they didn't contribute much in. My favorite is certainly the Zipcaster, which even I think could be placed in a mid-tier because of how much potential it has to feed as much as it has to pop off. A lot of specials are like that, and that's actually what makes me happy and excited to see the full potential of the specials in the full game. And now for the final part I wanted to talk about, the Tricolor Turf War. Now I was on Team Scissors, which meant my team was the 4 during these matches. This mode was positioned in a way to make it seem like the 4 had the massive advantage. They had more players. Surely they'd always win, but turns out it's a lot harder to maintain a lead when you consistently have no guaranteed turf. The team of 4 is forced to spawn in the middle of the map, an area everyone can access and paint, while the teams of 2 still have their typical spawn areas. While the team of 4 in theory has control of most of the map, they lose out on any certain control. Once things go downhill for the team of 4, it's easy for them to quickly have no turf to work with and have to spawn right into enemy ink. That being said, it's still very much possible for the team of 4 to win, and in another video I have planned, I'll go into more detail, and I know I've said that many times already, but you should definitely subscribe to catch those later. Tricolor is a neat idea to mix things up during Splatfest, making it less repetitive and provides a bit of a challenge. I'm interested to see what more strategies come out of this. Splatoon 3 is shaping up to be very enjoyable to play. Like I mentioned, I played for 8 hours, and that was 8 hours straight. I don't even remember the last time I did that with Splatoon 2. Even my friends were pleasantly surprised with the game and are actually going to buy the full one. I enjoyed every second, and my only problem was really with Resort being too cramped. Everything else felt really smooth and fun. All the weapons, the maps, the specials, it just all felt really good. I liked what I experienced for sure. But what did you guys think of the demo? What were some of your favorite and least favorite parts about it? I'd love to hear what you guys have to say about it. So with that, I want to thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next time.